The funny thing about life is that it goes on. Hi, I'm Retro. This is Retro Ripped. So I'm sure a lot of you out there have asked yourselves, where is my Marvel animated universe that is on par with the DC animated universe? And for those of you who are unfamiliar with the DC animated universe, go learn a book, you ugly fuckfest. The DCU is, as the name implies, the DC animated universe, wherein characters from the comics DC publishes, like Superman or Batman or Green Lantern or Green Arrow, all appear. Essentially, to kids, it was the holy grail of all that was cartoons. Comic book cartoons are some of the best cartoons because these characters have been fleshed out long before they ever made it onto the animated screen. In that way, they have a rich plethora of background story that you wouldn't necessarily get with a cartoon that you're just trying to start from scratch without that source material. In other words, they can do amazing things that you can't do otherwise. That's why when you watch a show like Justice League as opposed to something stupid and contrived like Lunatics, a spin-off of the Looney Tunes wherein all the Looney Tunes characters had superpowers, these characters are fully fleshed out as compared to something like that where you basically have to start from scratch with the story that you're trying to tell. For a long time, DC was the frontrunner. They had the best content, by far. But over the years, it's not as if Marvel just up and hasn't shown up to the party. They've given it their fair share of runs, some successful ones too. Take, for example, the Avengers, for its Mightiest Heroes. Now this was a Marvel show worth watching. If you've ever wanted to know the basic backstories of classic Marvel characters that are very popular nowadays, like Iron Man, Captain America, Ant-Man, the Hulk, Wasp, Hawkeye, and a few others, then this is the show for you. Now, I can't exactly testify to exactly how exact the show is as compared to the comic books because, quite frankly, I'm not a comic book fan, so I haven't read enough to know about that source material. I will say this, though. There are two major events that most anybody who's even looked into these comic books knows happen in the Marvel Universe that took place during this show. The Kree invasion and the Skrull invasion, respectively. And on top of that, the writing in this show actually feels a couple tiers higher than anything else I've ever watched that had to do with the Avengers, period. The Avengers, Earth's Mightiest Heroes, is even better than the movie. But when you have 40 episodes of a series, each about a half an hour long, that's not exactly the hardest thing to do in comparison. The first episode's plot goes like this. Tony Stark, the lovable billionaire philanthropist, starts off this series big by immediately going around the world and taking care of people who have stolen his tech. If you've watched the Iron Man movies or any of the Avengers movies, you know how big of a deal that is. That's basically Tony Stark's whole thing, is he goes around and punishes people for using his technology. And in this instance, he even managed to tick off Dr. Doom. Doom! This guy's a genius! He kicks AIM's ass because, AIM doesn't have very great aim, and takes the AIM soldiers into S.H.I.E.L.D. to be, dealt with. It is here that we learn that all the prison systems all over the world that house the supervillains that S.H.I.E.L.D. captures are now under threat of failing because of reasons not yet explained in the show. So right off the bat, luckily for S.H.I.E.L.D., we find out that 3 of our would-be Avengers are already located in these prison systems. 2 of them are actually locked up, while 1 of them just works there. The Hulk is locked up because he's the Hulk, Hawkeye is locked up because they think he's a spy, and Hank Pym isn't locked up, but he does work with the S.H.I.E.L.D. prison systems in working towards rehabilitating the villains. With Pym is his would-be assistant slash girlfriend slash pain in the neck, Wasp. I don't know what she's like in the comic books, but in this version she's goddamn annoying with her talks of friendship and putting your trust in others above all else and blah blah. Seriously, I wish someone would just spray her with some bug spray and be done with it already. And all that leaves is Thor to be Thor because, well, he's Thor. I don't know if this is how they portray him in the Marvel comic books, but here they're doing a pretty great job of portraying him as Superman. That's just my 2 cents on the matter anyways. Nick Fury, aka Total Badass, aka Director of S.H.I.E.L.D., sends word to Tony Stark that his system is about to fail. But Tony Stark is all like, I'll deal with it some other day, I just got back from that place. You should have asked me while I was there. Something snaps, so while Bruce Banner deals with one of the prisons all on his very own, Iron Man goes to deal with the other one. But unbeknownst to him, Hawkeye is already on the scene, who was locked up because, Black Widow as a whole. The Hulk really isn't having much trouble because he is the strongest one of them all, of course, but Iron Man, on the other hand, is getting his ass kicked by the inmate. He really doesn't stand much of a chance against them at all. But with his gizmos and technology and whatnot, he does manage to notify S.H.I.E.L.D. that they should evacuate the prison immediately. Because, it's totally Tony Stark's job to do that and not Nick Fury's in the least. Meanwhile, Hank Pym is getting his ass kicked as well, but not as badly because, as it turns out, Hank Pym is actually pretty fucking beast. He holds his own against a group of villains until Wasp comes to back him up, and even then, might as well just consider this one another Hank Pym solo, if you ask me. And just when it seems like this is the worst that it can possibly get, it turns out there was a third S.H.I.E.L.D. prison where they hold a character who is the most powerful character that's being held in these systems, period. Graviton. He literally controls gravity. When he gets freed, shit goes down. Thus leading into episode 2. Hulk escapes from prison with his friend Doc Samson and takes him to a diner to get him help because, Hulk can't exactly be going around hospitals without setting off tons of military alarms. Watches TV and finds out that Thor is currently battling Graviton to the death. Bruce Banner from within the Hulk tells the Hulk, hey, you could be helping Thor right now because you're that strong. But Hulk says that Thor would not do the same for him. But Banner manages to strike a deal with the Hulk. Hulk will go and be a hero, but in exchange, he wants free run. He wants to be the one who's out all the time instead of Bruce Banner. Banner agreed. And from there on, the entire episode is essentially the Avengers assembling to beat Graviton down to the ground. Graviton is not going down without a fight, and it inevitably takes the might of all active Avengers at the moment, sans Hawkeye, to take him down. One by one, the Avengers arrive on the scene, and in their own way contribute something different to the fight. Inevitably, they take Graviton down. Laughs are had, beers are shared, and everybody goes home happy about themselves considering the fact that they just witnessed the birth of the Avengers. This show is really fucking good. As opposed to a show like Justice League, wherein the show most prominently featured the entire team as a whole, as opposed to individual superheroes doing their own thing. This show actually does a really good job of describing what the Avengers actually are. They're not like the Fantastic Four, who are a group of characters who only fight with each other, and thus have above average to excellent teamwork skills. These are just a group of superheroes who ordinarily go off fighting crime on their own, and each one is particularly super powerful in their own right. But despite the fact that each one of them is basically a superpowered behemoth, they do inevitably come together to make something stronger than they are on their own. And this is shown wherein Tony Stark attempts to take on multiple villains at once and promptly gets his ass handed to him. It doesn't matter if you're one of the strongest people on Earth. If you're going up against a group of people who are also the strongest people on Earth, you're going to get your ass handed to you. Unless you also yourself have a group of the strongest people on Earth to back you. And that is what the Avengers are when it comes down to it. Earth's Mightiest Heroes. That title really makes sense now that I think about it. Of course, there are people who love the DCAU and grew up with it and will testify on the fact that it is the best superhero franchise in existence. But despite that fact, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that Earth's Mightiest Avengers was even better than Justice League. Better than Justice League Unlimited. Hell, might even have been better than Batman. And that is really fucking hard to do. Batman was a classic of a show. This was accomplished by, instead of going after the whole team dynamic and what the Avengers can accomplish when they're always together, instead they focused more on what the Avengers can accomplish separately as individual superheroes with these powers, almost as if they each had their own shows within this show. You could pick out certain episodes in the season and consider that, a Hulk miniseries, or an Ant-Man miniseries, or an Iron Man miniseries. And at the end of the day, this is the kind of show that anything having to do with the Avengers needed to be. Just like the Marvel Cinematic Universe is currently under the impression that the best way for their universe to thrive is by creating a series of movies that are all individualized and then bringing people together in shows like the Avengers or the Defenders. It's a sound theory that's worked for comic books for years, and television is just really another step forward into the visual media. Ergo, something that worked for comic books is very likely, at least, to work for television as well. People really like continuity. That's just a matter of fact. That's always been one of the biggest draws of the Marvel or DC franchises are the fact that they have this huge universe filled with characters that you literally love that at any time could cross over into each other's books. Because, they all live on the same world. It's just a bigger way of thinking about storytelling. Because in a way, it keeps the story from never ending. The Marvel Cinematic Universe can literally go on forever because a new character can just step up take the place of old characters once the old characters no longer have arcs to go through on screen. And in a sense, each and every adventure that the superhero goes through adds another story to this universe. And this really expands the amount of people you can reach with your products. Because one person might really be an Ant-Man, while another person might really be an Iron Man. And they might not necessarily know a lot about the other character, but put them both on screen with each other and say that they're from the same universe, and suddenly your interest in Ant-Man is going to pour over into your interest in Iron Man. I am Retro. This is Retro Rips. The funny thing about life is that it goes on. Even when you've reached your lowest low, you don't feel like you can keep on going on. It doesn't matter how you feel about it, life will continue on.